Hello and welcome to another Talking Points live stream. Today we've got Sharpen CX. Now I heard about Sharpen CX years ago. They've been kind of small and quiet, but a lot of things are changing over there. So we're going to meet with the CEO, Charlie Newark-French. Let's go ahead and bring him in. I think he's coming to us live from Ireland. Is that right?
Hey Dave, how you doing? Yeah, I'm dialing in from Ireland. We have a small office here.
Did you say dialing in? Oh my,
I'm still stuck in the old world, but I guess I'm video conferencing in.
So welcome, Charlie. Why don't you go ahead and just start off with a brief introduction of yourself and your company?
Yes. Well, Dave, thank you for hosting us, and I look forward to the session. I've been looking forward to it for a few days now. I'm Charlie. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Sharpen. My background is a little bit on the communication space. As an investor, I invested in Ring Central. As an operator, I ran a video conferencing company called Fuse, which later became a much larger company, a UCaaS company, Fuse, and that was acquired by 8x8.
Fuse Box. It was Fuse Box.
Originally Fuse Box, then Fuse, and then 8x8. In the last 4 or 5 years, I've spent deeply working in custom machine learning models for document processing. So that sort of background is what I was excited to bring to Sharpen. You mentioned Sharpen's been around for a while. We were founded in 2014. For the last, whatever that is, 9 years, we've been a CCaaS company, a contact center as a service company, cloud native, microservices native. And what I'm really excited is taking a very nimble, agile infrastructure that we have and sort of building what I refer to, and I'm sure we'll speak to today, the contact center of tomorrow within that. We'll get a lot deeper into what that is, but that's the self-service portion, as we all know, IVAs, IVR, whatever buzzwords we want to throw around there. That's then the handover to an agent. You can call that an ACD. And then that's the sort of agent assist and post-call interactions, which might be self-service.
So I want to go into, I want to double click on some of those topics you just hit there. But before that, I'm just going to ask you, there's an awful lot of CCaaS companies out there. So I mean, does the world really need another CCaaS provider? What's the contribution to the world that you're bringing?
Totally. I joined Sharpen 5 months ago. I joined with a very simple vision. It's the vision of Sharpen. Our vision is 4 words. This is what orients us over a very long period of time, and that is contact centers people love. Now, what do we mean by people? Most importantly, we mean you and me as consumers, every single one watching this video. I also mean agents, I mean supervisors, I mean a CFO. Universally, if I ask people, I never have any pushback. I'm sure you and I will get into areas we disagree today, but I never have pushback when I say not a single person out there loves contact centers. No one wants to dial into one. No one wants to text one. It is universally a non-liked experience. I'd go as far as to say, but we might disagree here, that a lot of the time it's actually a hated experience. So our aim is to change that, and that's the sort of vision we have. We'll speak about what we're building, what we have to do that. But when you get to the question of does the world need another CCaaS provider, I'd say the world needs a lot fewer CCaaS providers. I think you could probably list 100 CCaaS providers. I might be able to get to a number almost as large as that. But this is a large, fragmented market that I think is categorically poorly served. Like the fact that I can say without anyone pushing back, this is a bad experience, that's poorly served. My experience in these markets is you typically have a few players that win. You see that in the video conferencing space with Zoom and Microsoft really dominating. When I was working at Fuse, running Fuse Video, there used to be 100 players out there as well then for video. I actually did my executive team meetings on a different video conferencing every day. Well, not every day, sorry, every week. I can't even remember the names of them, but there was like Uber Conference, and there was all these different ones. Very poorly served market, radical changing technology with WebRTC and a few other things, shrinks down to a very well-served market. And that's what's going to happen here. I suspect one of the legacy players might make it. And I also think with the bets we're making, that Sharpen will be one of those people that survives this consolidation.
So earlier, you would use the phrase we got the contact center of tomorrow. So how is the contact center tomorrow different than the contact center of today in your vision, in your mind?
Yeah. Yeah, but there's been some radical changes out there in the market. I have no doubt we're going to speak about AI today. It's the topic du jour.
Obligatory.
Um, Yeah, exactly. There's been a lot of technology changes. Even the move to the cloud is a technology change that hasn't yet been adopted by the contact centers. So, our view when we're building the contact center is tomorrow is that vision of making it a loved experience. But these are the sort of parts of it. Firstly, I think automation is going to play, or self-service is going to play an absolutely key part of that, and we've got to get that right. I then think this the handoff to an agent has to be a lot better, and you see some companies doing some interesting things out there, but that's making sure that with that problem set, you hand over to exactly the right person, and that person has very quickly the context to take that call or that interaction in the right way. And interaction is what is the important thing. That one of our customers had gone from 99% calls to 49% calls in the last year. Like this is just a change in the way that customers or end consumers want to interact with their customer. And then the last part of that is a very empowered agent. And that we're going to do all of that part of it. And we've quite a bunch of companies to fill some gaps. We're doing some development to fill some gaps. And we're going to do heavy integrations outside of that. So for us, Contact Center tomorrow isn't UCaaS, it isn't workforce management, but it is the ability to sort of integrate into those things. And here, Dave, very quickly, if you'll allow me, this is where I think I'll say something that instead of a statement you'll very much agree with, my view of the contact center tomorrow, and this is a somewhat orthogonal view here, is that it's going to be a much more important thing, a much larger market than we have today. And we're not talking about 18% growth. I think if we get this right and we create a contact center people truly love, you're actually going to see massive pent up demand. The example I like to give here is anytime you've had a pricing change, a feature change, an accessibility change in a product that's radical, you've seen it come with a radical change in demand. Agriculture is an example from 100 years ago, manufacturing from 50 years ago. So the last 10 years, we've seen that in ride sharing, where in some cities in the US, the ride sharing market is 10x what it was 10 years ago when it was just taxis. I'll just give you an example of what I hope the contact center of tomorrow looks like. I go down the street, I buy a bike, I text a picture of that bike and a picture of a receipt to my preferred insurance company of choice. If it's simple, that automation self-service immediately texts me back, click here, $2 a month, we'll add it to your bill. I click, nothing else needs to happen. It's a bit more complicated. Maybe I live in a zip code that is a bit dangerous from a bike perspective. It goes, I need to connect you with somebody, an expert in this area, connects me with somebody that knows what bike insurance is. And within a minute of talking to somebody, I have an insurance that maybe isn't $2 a month, it's $4.50 a month. And that's what I think it
That
looks like.
seems like a very Irish example. You're in Ireland right now, but you also live in New York. Aren't you more likely just to go rent a city bike or something? But I guess that's beside. I shouldn't go too far in the analogy. But
I do rent a city bike most days, yes.
but I do
Good
really like
technology.
the point that you raised about. I think the market is going to get a lot bigger. I think we're already seeing that
Yes.
now. It used to be so much equipment and expertise you needed to start a contact center, but also the. You're right. You said the frustration with the contact center. I've been frustrated for decades, but recently I've been really frustrated with the digital experience. I mean, it's amazing to me how primitive the digital experience is. Initiating an inquiry from an app and not having any context, not having any authentication. It just seems like you're missing the story here. So. I don't know how many, so many changes. You've been there, I think 5-6 months. Is that what you said?
Yep.
And I don't know, there's been so many changes. There's been changes in leadership we'll get to in a second, but
Yep.
there's also
Yep.
just been changes in your company. You've been doing some acquisitions. I know of at
Totally.
least two. I don't know if there's only two or not, but I don't know if you even call them acquisitions. You call them mergers or what's going on here. But tell us about WebText and Plum Voice.
Yeah. Most importantly, Dave, they're mergers. I believe that's important from a bringing organizations perspective, from bringing organizations together. We fully merged organizational hierarchy, for example. I suppose I hate that word, but is fully integrated at this point. The reason we've done these mergers is we have a lot to do. The industry has a lot to do to create the contact center of tomorrow that I just described, or that we'll get into in more detail later, has a lot to do to create something that people love versus something that people hate. So we're going to acquire some of that. We're certainly done for at least a 6-month period. Integrations take time. I want to make sure those are a full success. So some of that's acquisitions, some of that's product development, and some of that we already had within Sharpen. So web text you mentioned, nobody out there, as far as I'm aware, does outbound texting campaigns better than they do. So an example of that is an appointment reminder for hospitals. We do that all over the country with Plum Voice. No one does IVA better than they do. So AI-based self-service better than they do. And then, as far as I know, no one does CCAS, true CCAS, ACD, and agent interface and agent assist better than Sharpen does. And it's a combination of those three that I really think you need are the key parts of the contact center of tomorrow.
You know, my veterinarian is doing appointment reminders with tap-on text, and my dog doesn't even have a phone. I mean, I talk about a wasted effort there. But okay, so let's see. We got a question here. We got a real question here. Look at this. I don't know if you want to answer this. Some CEOs won't. But Daryl wants to know if you want to share anything about your cloud infrastructure.
Yeah. Look, we are primarily an AWS company. We have redundancy. We have it set up we serve true enterprise customers. We serve small businesses as well. Based on AWS, everything's in AWS, and a pretty resilient tech stack there. If people want to use their own more hybrid setting, we're able to do that, but almost everyone's in our AWS instance.
Okay. Thank you, Daryl. Sharpen CX leadership team. I alluded you to a lot of changes there too, including yourself. So when the CEO changes, lots of things change, I guess. So you want to talk a little bit about the leadership team at Sharpen?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we have a lot to do, and I want to move extremely quickly. The advantage of being an agile, much younger company than some of our bigger competitors out there is that we can move very quickly. And to do what I just described, which is a giant undertaking, we have some of that in place, and we didn't have some of that in place. And my aim was, as quickly as possible, was to get that in place. And what we're doing as a company is we do a big annual kickoff. I've done this at all the companies I've been at. And a lot of the last few months have been preparing for that, so that vision is set for at least a 1-year basis. When you look at the leadership team that are in place, you sort of see 5 characteristics. This is the one that's been in place before, but also what I've put together over the last few months. The first is it has a lot of Sharpen legacy. I think that's an important thing. Important understanding of where you come from is important to know where you go to. So our COO is an example of that. Our CTO is an example of that. The second thing I have, which you absolutely need, is we've got a couple of visionaries in there. People that really look at things a little bit differently. I look at things a little bit differently, but also our chief product officer certainly does. Our VP marketing certainly does. I think we've got some interesting stuff coming out there. Industry expertise. We got our CRO from one of our biggest competitors. They know the market. That person knows the market inside out, and I think that sort of industry expertise.
So Charlie, just a little pro tip here. You know, people ask you about your leadership team. You might want to mention some names.
Totally.
Okay.
So, look, the one I'm speaking about there is Brad Fox. I think he's very well known in the industry. He came from NICE, running a significant portion of the team there, targeting the exact kind of folks that we wanted to have in. Our VP marketing, Laura, who I mentioned from a visionary perspective, also comes from the industry as well. Has worked in a couple of areas in the space, including NICE. The other characteristics I look for is sort of just execution and people that I know and have worked with. I've worked with John Mark at my last company, a company called Hyperscience, that was deeply in the machine learning space. Everything we did there was machine learning. He's our chief customer officer and just an industry veteran that's been around in this space for about 30 years, just absolute execution focus. So for me, it's all about industry, company knowledge, vision, and then execution.
Excellent. Okay, I got 2 more questions for you here. We're right on schedule, actually. Let's see. When I first learned about Sharpen, the company had a very, very strong focus, the agent experience. And so I want to know, as Sharpen has changed and evolved, is that still the primary focus of Sharpen? And we didn't really talk about that at all.
Yeah, Dave. Firstly, yes, and secondly, evolved. I like that word. Evolution is a good thing, and with any company, it's about taking where you are today and building it into the next step and building the contact center of tomorrow. Our original thesis was that a empowered agent results in better outcomes. Now, for me, that is a build philosophy, not a buy philosophy, which is to say that is an internal philosophy, not a reason that a customer would come and say, "I'm going to give you a ton of money to solve a series of problems for me." It remains our build philosophy. And our philosophy, just to be very clear there, is if you build with the agent in mind, you're going to get better outcomes. And what that certainly means, I want to be very clear on this, is it means self-service and automation. There is no good reason that an agent should be doing check my balance, or there is no good reason an agent should be doing an appointment notification. And if you can take all of that very mundane work off of an agent's hand, and technology can now solve that problem, and give agents a good software that allows them to solve a customer's problems, you're going to find a much deeper relationship and a much more sort of enjoyable job on that side. So it's all still about building software that allows an agents to do an exceptional job and takes anything else off their hand. But we don't sell that to the customer. What we sell to the customer is increased customer satisfaction. What we sell to the customer is better revenue. What we sell to the customer is lower contact center costs. And it's our job as a business to take what we build and get customer messaging around it that is valuable to them. And we do that really well as a business in terms of making those differences. We haven't historically told that story as well and as crisply as we're telling it today, I think.
Okay, that's interesting. So yeah, I like that. It seemed a little narrow before, so you broaden that view. All
Yeah,
right. So the obligatory question we referenced already. We
yes.
cannot do a conversation with a contact center professional without a question on generative AI. So tell us your view and opinion on and forecast on generative
Yeah.
AI.
Look, we're going through a massive technology change. There is very few industries I can think of that are more ripe for change than the contact center industry. If you look at the first iteration of generative AI that we all got super excited about, it was a chatbot, by another word. That is what a contact center is by another word. So the technology is really far more advanced than it was 5 to 10 years ago when I was in this space. At the same time, you've got a lot of demand for that technology out in the space. And the last 4 or 5 years, I've been working in not sort of off the shelf technology, but like deeply coding actual custom ML models. So I know what's the art of the achievable here. I think that we've got radical technology, but I'm a big believer in using an extremely boring name for how we apply that. And the name I use is usable AI. That means it's got to work. A science experiment is not the place for a customer setting. So I'm not putting generative AI out there without guardrails in front of a consumer for an enterprise grade company. It's got to be explainable. It's got to be enterprise grade, and that has a whole load of things behind it. And you've got to manage risk realistically. And what our focus on here is getting you sort of very fast time to value AI out there that is actually usable. And I'll give you a few examples. We have so much going on; it's quite unbelievable. Actually, I just came out of our latest AI summit before this, but I'll give you 4 examples as small examples of what we're doing in this space. The first is on the self-service. This I actually think is is what the market's most interested in, but I actually think some of the stuff that we're going to talk about in a second is even more interesting, Dave. But on the self-service side, we're using generative AI with a guardrailed bot over it. And that bot says, what's the question that's being asked? Where is the best place for me to go and get that information from? It has one of 10 different models to go to. And then that sends it out to a generative AI if that's the right way for us to go. And as it comes back, there's a guardrail of, is this nonsense or is this correct? It goes to the customer. I think that's a super interesting way of solving it. Adds latency, unnoticeable amount of latency. For a computer, you'd see the latency, but as a human, you're not sort of seeing that. So I think we're tackling that in a very unique way. The handover, I think, is important, and that means like there's AI actually routing like, is this person annoyed from sentiment? Have they been on like 10 times before? Do they speak Spanish? And we're doing some using a little bit of true AI in there. The agent side is what I think is super interesting. Firstly, it's table stakes now, but let's just make it very clear. No one's writing summarizations of their calls anymore. That's happening through generative AI. No one's doing translation, or if you can't speak the language, there's no issues. That's all being done through AI. And then we're doing surfacing up relevant information for agents. That is what I think is going to get the earliest traction, because it's so safe. When I talk about usable AI, if you make a mistake in that setting, which mistakes will be made by generative AI, no one cares. You make a mistake with a live customer that asks about their balance for a bank, people really care. So I think the agent side is where I'm going to be able to persuade our customers to take a bit more risk than they would in other areas. And I think that that's a great stepping stone. And then lastly,
Very
on the
good.
supervisor, this is something we're doing, but we're allowing you to use natural language as a way to get dashboards up instead of SQL, or instead of doing any sort of low code, no code, or coding to get those dashboards. So everyone assigns a higher degree of intelligence to AI that speaks in human language. And so you can now say, I want to know what words are trending in the last 7 days. And the same dashboard that you would have been able to go and create before is now going to
Right.
be created, but using natural language instead of coding.
That's fantastic. When do you think we'll see some of this generative AI that you described?
So a lot of that's in the some of that's in the product now. The call summarization, for instance, interaction summarization of everything that's happened in the IVA before it's get handed over to the actual customer. That's in there. And we're just rolling out on a pretty constant basis over the next year. But as I say, we're only rolling out stuff that's actually useful. Any science projects is being done by a very small group of people in our labs. It doesn't get close to customers, but that sort of 2-3 year out stuff, I'm less interested in it right now. I'm more interested in
All right.
fast time to value, and a lot of some of that I've just mentioned is out there in our product today.
All right. Well, we are right at time here, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this live stream. I want to thank you very much for joining us, particularly from Ireland. I guess it's about time to go out for a pint. And
It's 3 p.m., so that sounds about right.
that sounds about right. Yep. All right. Well, very good. Enjoy your time there, and we look forward to getting more frequent updates from Sharpen CX. It's been a while, at least for me.
Hey,
Um,
thank you so much for hosting me.
Thank you.